We will be, yeah, we're basically getting our facilities up, but just step back. So I dumped all my life savings into this company. And I'll be quite frank with you, up to, what was it, December, not this past Christmas, Christmas before, I was like in St. Louis, because part of Arch Grants, you need to have an office here, and then you have to have a home here, right, within the city. So the Arch Grants, the $100,000 win allowed me to kind of survive during that year, getting the company to where it is. And I was down to my last $100 last Christmas. I'm not joking. The world will text you. I don't care about your religious background, your God, or universe, or whatever it is. It will test you. It'll give you what you're asking for, and will put you through a period of time in your life or through a road to see if you can get through it. And I say, if you really want something and it is your dream, your goal, whatever you wanted in life, I promise once you get through that, you have character built, you'll have made new friends, whatever it is, and you'll create a whole new kind of version of yourself coming out of that trying.
If you or someone you know owns an apartment community, listen up. Storyboard Living is actively seeking 40 to 250 unit apartment communities within a 3-hour drive of St. Louis, whether that's Carbondale, Illinois, Columbia, Missouri, or St. Louis County. We're easy to work with and competitive on pricing. You can send information to deals@storyboardliving.com. That's deals@storyboardliving.com. Mark, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Raj.
You're the founder of Modular Building Systems, an exciting startup here in St. Louis, originally from Canada.
Yes, born and raised in Hamilton, Ontario.
Which I think is how we first connected. But your company is one of 20 that won over 700 other companies in the 2023 Arch Grants competition.
That's right.
So very impressive accomplishment. And then I think that combined with some of the state grants and other funding is really what drew you to St. Louis. Is that fair to say?
For sure. I would say more so the Arch Grants competition win got me to St. Louis, and then it was trying to raise traditional capital, equity, all that. And it was pretty tough to raise money in St. Louis at times. So then I got a little creative and worked with Senator Carla May and a couple other really great people, and was able to get an appropriation and new market tax credit closing. And that's what really launched our company here in St. Louis. So, yeah.
And you have a great company and a great mission. You're really working hard to try to solve the affordable housing crisis that really the entire country, if not many parts of the world, are facing. So excited to have the conversation, and thanks for making the time.
No, I appreciate it, Raj. I'm glad to be here.
I'd love to start with just your background, how you maybe were first exposed to entrepreneurship, and then if there was a light bulb moment for the challenge that you're trying to solve, that'd be great as well.
I feel like I've always been an entrepreneur. I remember when I was like 11 years old, I had a paper route, and then I got all the other paper routes in the communities, and I got my friends to work for my paper routes, and I did like a 70-30 split. So I think that was kind of like the launch in entrepreneurship. I was kind of a co-founder of an events thing. We did massive EDM events in Toronto, Hamilton area growing up. And then when I was 20, I ended up buying my first house. So basically moved in there with some friends, fixed it up, paid down the mortgage a bit. 3 years later, refinanced it, bought my next property, and then kind of snowballed from there. And then I got into land development, general contracting, and all that. And then kind of going through that process over 10 years, I was pulling my hair out. It was like, trades not showing up at time, materials either coming, warped or whatever it is, or not delivered on time. And also the skill set of trades. Some would be very, very skilled. Some would be not have no idea what they're doing. Change orders, list goes on. So my eureka moment was I was in the middle of a project. It was a townhome build, I think 3 or 4 units. And I don't know what happened. I don't just get these downloads or inspiration, but I just took inspiration from IKEA, flat pack panelized system that's delivered to your home. You use like a simple tool or whatever to put it together in your house. And then also the just-in-time manufacturing model of Henry Ford. Because if you look at Ford, they can put a 30,000 part vehicle together in 30 hours and roll it off the line. So when you break down a home or building, the structural components of like 8 to 10 components. So why can't we do that? So then my life's never been the same since. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's a big leap, though. And I think a lot of people get stuck on going from idea to execution.
Yes.
So what were the next steps? You had this brilliant idea, and then from there, were you just solely focused on that idea, or was it
pretty much
ruminating in the background?
No. Yeah, obviously there's kind of a transition. Quite frankly, I had a completely different team. At the time, I assembled partners, and that kind of blew up. I should have quit then, but no, I was like, nope, I'm not going to give up on this idea. I saw the vision and the impact impact, the end result that we could have, and then kind of assembled a new team. During that phase, I'll be quite frank with you, I ended up pretty much going broke. I was sleeping on an air mattress in a crappy studio apartment in Hamilton, Ontario, and had a wife at the time, and she didn't leave me at that point, but down the road she did, because I kept pushing and pushing for this. And entrepreneurial journey is not a straight bathtub curve; it's very up and down, peaks, valleys, and whatnot. And ended up actually at that time working at Mazda selling cars. Ended up being one of the top sales guys there. Saved up enough money and wanted to start fresh. So I moved out to Kelowna, British Columbia, and then literally spent 16 hours a day at my computer outreaching and building out the revenue model, the prospectus and whatnot, and realized that in Canada, our model wouldn't work very well just with the barriers of, building codes and new technologies, and then the cost of doing business, such as rent or labor, taxes, etc. And also even from the development side, the land acquisition costs alone in Canada, you can't actually do anything attainable or affordable, right? So that's when I kind of shifted at looking at the States, and St. Louis was my first pick. It actually was the last pick that ended up working out, but I looked at Bellingham, Washington, LA, Vegas, Memphis, outside of Nashville as well too, and got some traction there to a point, but then it just kind of hit a wall, and then I remember my first trip to St. Louis would have been December of 2022. Ended up meeting with Don Pohl, president of Rankin Technical College, sparked a partnership immediately, and then actually took a drive around North St. Louis, around Rankin, and I was like, how has this happened? Like all these dilapidated homes, crumbling homes, greenfield. And then I found out that, my heart broke, and I realized, okay, this is meeting our mission, what we need to do. And then learned about the Del Mar Divide, learned about the redlining, and that really pissed me off, to be honest with you. And then heard about the city has a land bank called basically the LRA, LCRA, that owns all this land and it's available. It's like everything just checked. And then Maxine Clark, my next trip down, she joined my board of advisors immediately, told me about Arch Grants, and then ended up winning that. And I guess I can say the rest is history. So here I am.
So you said a couple of interesting things that I think are recurring themes from different folks I speak to. So one, it is hard to do business in Canada. I think the entrepreneurial infrastructure doesn't exist there the same way it exists here. But then two, like you mentioned Maxine Clark, for example. I think if you're in a bigger city, a larger city, it's hard to reach some of these top business people. And here it's not easy, but it's a lot easier than a large city.
It's 1 degree of separation in St. Louis. And I love it because yes, you can get in front of the founder, CEO, say Bob Clark, these big guys. You can get a meeting in front of them. If you're in LA, good luck. In New York or Toronto, wherever, good luck. But I like how it's 1 degree of separation because one, you can get in front of these people, move your company forward, but also two, keeps you in check. Reputation's a big thing in this town, right? You're 1 degree of separation of, being on the wrong side of the story, put it that way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Reputation is very important. Yeah. And particularly in every industry, it feels like everyone knows everyone. So like in real estate, regardless of the vertical, it does feel like everyone knows everyone.
Totally.
And you guys have a great reputation. I think a lot of people are excited about what you're looking to do and continuing to do. So let's talk about... I hate to say it, but let's talk about how St. Louis was the last pick. Yes. And then it became, the home of you. Well,
usually
the
last pick is the best pick. So,
yeah, good point. But let's talk about that whole Arch Grants process, how you positioned yourself to win, and then also how instrumental that's been in maybe launching the company.
100%. Arch Grants is an incredible organization, and Maxine kind of introduced me to the process. And there's a 3-stage process. There's the first fill out a form, then they review. And if you make it to the second stage, you got to do a video, pitch video, and kind of all these little extra things. And then if you make it to the third stage, that's in-person pitch day, where you're pitching in front of 30 to 50 really seasoned professional entrepreneurs, business owners, and whatnot, and you got to get through them. I think the big differentiator for our company was the impact, also the legwork that I've done before the pitch day. So I visited St. Louis maybe 4 or 5 times before final pitch day, and I was able to get Maxine on my board. I was able to get traction, say, with Jeff and Matt Frankel with New Markets and from Impact Marketplace, and met all these people. And really, at the end of the day, the core of Arch Grants, you have to have a good company, good founders, good idea, but you want to be in St. Louis. Really, you really want to be in St. Louis. I feel like all that legwork I did ahead of time, showing that in a presentation, obviously good idea, the mission and all that, but really being in St. Louis, creating that brick and mortar, creating jobs here, I think that was the key differentiator, honestly, from winning the Arch Grants competition in my year, for sure. Yeah.
Got it. So let's back up a little bit. I didn't realize you had done that much legwork prior to Arch Grants. So you got to St. Louis, you made a
December
couple,
2022. Yeah, first
and you,
trip.
you were meeting people around town.
Yeah.
How did the new markets come into play, or how did these different entities come into play?
It was so funny. Yeah. So I was actually I almost ended up in Memphis, and one of my really good friends, he's the co-founder of an amazing medical startup called Sweet Bio, Dr. Isaac Rodriguez, and it didn't really end up going anywhere in Memphis. I was like, hey, do you know maybe St. Louis? And they actually knew. I believe right now I can't remember his position, but right now he's the co-chair of the engineering at SLU,
Okay.
and Dr. Scott Sell ended up meeting up with him. It's like, Mark, this is great. Let me connect you to Dawn at Rankin, and then through Dawn at Rankin ended up meeting Matt and Jeff Frankel, and I didn't even know what new markets were. I'm Canadian. We don't have those programs up there, right? So learned about them, and they literally were kind of consultants, guidance for me until we closed our new market package this past December. So shout out to Matt and Jeff. You guys are awesome. Thank you. But yeah, so then I started learning about it, how we can leverage potential funds to unlock more dollars and whatnot. So it all worked out. And we basically used the new markets to leverage on not in a real estate play, which is traditionally, but we did on our equipment and tools, which is worth about 1.8 million. So yeah, that's it.
And then fast forward, you develop these
Yep.
relationships, you have the business idea, you get the Arch grant. What did that journey look like from 23 to today? And maybe it'll be helpful for us to give anyone listening or watching like some context on where you guys are today. You're working on a few very interesting projects, which I'd like to get into, but today you're up and running, you're actively developing.
Yes, we will be. Yeah, we're basically getting our facility set, but to step back. So I dumped all my life savings into this company, and I'll be quite frank with you. Up to what was it, December? Not this past Christmas, Christmas before. I was like in St. Louis because part of Arch grants, you need to have an office here, and then you have to have a home here, right within the city. So the Arch grants, the $100,000 win, allowed me to kind of survive during that year, getting the company to where it is. And I was down to my last $100 last Christmas. I'm not joking. And we ended up announcing the state appropriation win, but that was what, April, and it took till basically December to receive those funds, right, through the state. So I was down to nothing. And again, St. Louis is an incredible city. You reach out, 1 degree of separation. Ended up getting introduced to Rob Boyle from Justine Peterson and Aida Richardson, told them our story, showed them kind of the appropriation. They took a bet on me, and they gave us a bridge loan of $500,000 based on the state appropriation. And we ended up paying them back at the closing of the new markets this past Christmas, or, December. And now we have a great partner for life. But yeah, I was down to nothing. So the ups and downs, the risk you need to take, I don't recommend going as risky as I did to anyone, but you do have to take a night risk to really kind of, push through and reach that goal, and entrepreneur is not for everybody. You have to have a really tough skin and really belief in yourself and your idea and vision. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to jump around too much, but before we go back to where the company is today and how you guys got there over the last couple of years, let's talk about the perseverance. Let's talk about the challenges of being an entrepreneur. It sounds like when you had the idea, you went all in, you were
Yeah.
spending a lot of time, you're just exploring absolutely every avenue you could explore. Do you think that's something that you were maybe a trait you were born with, or did you
Yeah.
develop it? Or was it just that your idea and mission excites you that much?
I think it was a trait. Quite frankly, I have ADHD. So, people with ADHD, I have a hyperfocus ADHD, so it's kind of a superpower. I've been going to therapy for years, medication and all that. So I kind of really honed it in. When I was younger, I was scatterbrained everywhere. I was really good at school, but didn't apply myself and was bored of it, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think in entrepreneurial journey, it helps a bit. I was reading an article by a doctor, can't remember his name right now, but people with ADHD have about a 300% more chance to become a founder, entrepreneur. They can't sit at a desk and be that, typical, say 9 to 5. So I feel like, yeah, I would say for me, it was like, I knew what I needed to do. I needed what to get through it, but I didn't know how. So you just kind of shotgun approach and see where the traction is and see what people you need to get in front of. And, there's some really good people in St. Louis that believed in our vision, believed in me and my team and what we're doing. And it worked out, thankfully. But, it's risky. It's
Sure.
definitely risky. And there's going to be nights when it's very lonely too. I want to say there's nights where you're going to bed and you're stressing like crazy. You can't sleep. And then you got to push through the next day and just keep setting up meetings, keep doing this and see kind of where that web of network can lead you do to get to where your goal is and what it is. And yeah, would I do it all over again? If I knew how hard it would be, maybe not. But again, that's the beauty of not knowing what the next day is going to bring. You just keep going forward. So
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
every day
totally. Yeah.
you're figuring it
And
out.
honestly, the amount of growth, like professionally, emotionally, personally, during these last 6-7 years it's been incredible. And I wouldn't change it, to be honest with you. Yeah.
As far as like the feeling of being lonely goes, do you have, whether it's your Arch Grants cohort or some other group that you lean on in terms of like fellow business owners, CEOs?
Yeah, I would say your coffee and collaboration. I know I've missed the last 3 because I've been out of town, but that type of stuff. Arch Grants, they have a fellows program which they invited me to recently, which is like the top companies that have graduated out of their typical program. But Arch Grants is always a great resource. I find your group's great too, and now I have a great team. So I'm not totally alone anymore,
Yeah.
which is nice. So it's nice being able to delegate a lot of the tasks that you had to do them all at that time, and be able to delegate them. I have an amazing COO, Nicole Wales. She moved down from Canada, believing in the mission and the company. And Stephen Maddock recently joined us a few months ago. I know he's former with Michael Stanberg, and we brought another Canadian down, guy named Quinn Curry. He's our lead production supervisor, and then we have another Canadian coming down. And then we'll be hiring next month about 10 to 12 new employees, local St. Louisans, for our line and for our office jobs. So yeah,
that's very exciting.
Yeah.
So again, not to jump around too much, as we were talking, I was thinking, not everyone listening or watching may know exactly what you guys are doing, and then also like what you described may be different than what the reality is today, because the original idea was like an IKEA style packing, right? So can you go into detail on what exactly you guys are doing today, and what the building systems you guys are working on look like?
Sure. Yeah. Essentially, what we're doing is panelized offsite modular construction. So there's kind of like 3 verticals in the offsite world or modular world. You have your manufactured housing, which are kind of cheaper. You think of like trailer park areas and stuff like that. You have volumetric. Volumetric is a great solution for really, say, hotels, very cut and paste. But the issue with it is you're stuck in a box, right? So you're only, say up to 53 feet long, 8 feet wide, back of a trailer, flatbed trailer.
So, and I'm going to just stop so that I understand and anyone listening understands. So the volumetric, is that similar to like putting Lego blocks together?
I would say so. Like think of a shipping container, right? So it's built in a factory like we would, but it's a volumetric. So big issue with that is that if you want to go past 8 feet wide span, you have to get extra shipping load costs and wide load. You see them on the highway all the time. That costs more money. And then you're stuck in a box, right? There's really no design flexibility with it. A lot of the, say, volumetric companies can only maybe do 40 to 60% of a project, and then the rest has to be outsourced. They do traditional construction, or a panelized company like mine, right? So our big, I say, and then panelized is what we're focused on, because you can make a panel any length, any size. And kind of our secret sauce is that most panelized companies right now are stick built, and they are naked panels. So meaning just as the framing, they bring them in, drop them in, the general contractors finish it up. We're doing everything from the cladding, sheathing, insulation, MEP, drywall, and windows installed into our panels. And depending on the size of the panel, we'll either flat pack them vertically, or we'll vertically rack them on the back of a flatbed truck.
And this doesn't exist
right now. No, not the panelized does, naked panels,
Yeah,
but not fully finished.
Yeah, like you guys are the only ones doing it.
Correct. Yes.
Okay,
That's our differentiator, or secret sauce, I guess you could say.
Okay. And when you guys put these panels together and ship them to a site, what does the user look like? And then also, what's the benefit for the user?
Yeah, the benefit to the user, I'd say, from a cost basis, because we're using CNC automated machinery, and we still have a human element, but a lot of it's automated. We have automated saw cutter, we have a nailer, screw guns, like, you name it. Basically, that rolls off the line, about 30% savings compared to, say, traditional construction, and then about a 50% quicker timeline, because we're able to overlap site works, foundation works with the superstructure work, right? So anything above the foundation, so we can overlap that time. So cost savings from the client, say, if you have loans out, you have less interest to pay, you have less site time, you can go to the next project right after. The biggest issue in all this industry is the entitlement and permitting process from the city standpoint, but we can touch on kind of what we're working with the city of St. Louis when we start talking about the project there, and what we're working hopefully to transform a little bit stuff, how things get done in the city itself. So.
Sure. Yeah, we definitely will touch on that. Just so from a user perspective, if someone's working with your company, is the ideal scenario that everything looks the same?
No. No, I hate that. That was one of my things. Like I refused as the founder of the company to put out a subpar product or stuff that's cookie cutter, looks the same. Essentially, we can do in-house design, but to say if you have a set of architectural design plans, it could be anything from a tiny home, ADU, single family, row, up to high density multi-residential. We can take those plans and we'll break them up into basically panels in CAD, and then that system will actually output it to our CNC machines and shop drawings. And we manufacture to spec, right? Another thing we can do is, we're building kind of our own catalog right now, kind of to the typical St. Louis lot size, and people want to pick and choose and offer a catalog. We can do that. We're not there yet. Our big focus right now is not necessarily single family one-offs. We're really looking for multi-unit row homes, so developers, general contractors that want to streamline their business. So.
And the project you're currently working on, let's talk about that. But then also, did that project come about because you wanted to prove the concept? Is that what the thought process was there?
I would say part of it, we were down in St. Louis, before the tornado, right? So our mission was already North St. Louis to begin with, connected very, very well with the city, the SLDC and whatnot. And they put out an RFP even before the tornado regarding, modular. How can we bring attainable? I hate the word affordable housing because it has this bad connotation. You think of Section 8 and all this stuff. I like attainable housing. So, attainable housing in North St. Louis, redeveloping block by block. So yes, this is a pilot with the city right now that we're working on. It's worth 3.2 million. It's minimum 10 houses we need to deliver. That could be units, it could be row homes, single family. So we're doing a mix of row homes, single family. And yeah, so basically we're working with them right now. We just got announced right before Christmas. So this past month or so, we're kind of going through the game plan, getting all the contracts and everything signed. And then once our factory opens in March, April, we'll be beginning that project. So yeah, pretty exciting. But the big vision is how can we streamline this process and get, different textured homes in the neighborhood, different various models, but how can we bring attainable housing and economic development and equity back to historically punished neighborhood, in my opinion, to be
Sure.
honest with you.
Great mission. In terms of the factory, when that's open and running, with the correct output or correct question for me to ask you, would that be how many panels can you produce a month, or what are you measuring?
We're basically measuring, I would say, let's go by square foot, I would
Okay.
say. Again, I'm quoting Nicole, our COO. She's way smarter than me. She has like 10, 20 years of industry experience in this, running companies in Canada, panelized companies as well too. But, from her standpoint, about a week to manufacture, say, a 2,000 square foot home, and 4 days to get it to weather tight lockdown on site.
Okay.
So that's kind of our thing. So then finishings, obviously you have the entitlements, your site work ahead of time, foundation work. And then what we control is basically the superstructure up, right? So basically, all the panels, floor sections, roof sections, all that stuff, and deliver it. And then weather tight lockdown in 4 days. Then you have guys going in, finishing up fixtures, carpets, tiles, lighting, whatever you need. And then it gets done. So our I would like to say, once get our efficiencies down, we're really rolling. It'd be for a single family home. We're looking at, I would say, once the entitlements are done, about a month to 6 weeks to have it finished. Yeah.
And how many of those would you, once you're up and running and you've got things figured out, how many of those would you be looking to produce a month from that facility?
So it's based on the lines. Right now we have one line. We're going to run, if it, demands there, which we're seeing it is right now based on what's coming through, one shift, we're going to run 2 shifts. And if we get to the point, we have enough room in our facility right now to add another line, and it's 40,000 square feet. And then we have first right of refusal on an empty 60,000 right next to it. So if it keeps going, then we're just going to add more and more lines and hire more people and output. So that's it.
Got it. So it's safe to say that from that one facility and some of the adjacent properties, you'd be able to produce maybe at some point 10 houses a month. Is that a fair estimate?
10. Yeah, I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Yeah, no, understood. But the point is,
one line. Let's say one line double shift.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
The point is, if everything works out the way that you want it to work out, you'll be able to make a meaningful impact locally for sure, and then potentially regionally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. So the goal is, there's how many plots of land that the SLDC or the LCRA and LCRA have there. And then obviously there's a potential of getting the plots from McKee around NGA back as well too. So There's a lot of opportunity there, and we want to partner with the city, and we want to partner with private developers, nonprofits too. My heart's with the nonprofits, but for market properties too, 100%. We want the capacity to do that. So yeah, in the region, and I'm not just saying St. Louis, but yeah, even here we've spoken to the mayor of East St. Louis. They want to work with Mayor of Pine Lawn. A lot of these even counties. Florissant, Ferguson, all of them. They're all on our radar to help and see what we can do, make a difference. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. So you decided to build the facility in North City.
Where our mission is. Yeah,
but
I wanted to be there.
Yeah, which makes a lot of sense. Outside of that, were there any other reasons why you chose the city? Because we hear a lot locally about businesses going to the county or maybe avoiding the city for whatever reason. Were there other factors that went into play aside from arch grants as well, which
Yeah,
I know was
that's a factor. It is. I would say my relationship with the city as well too, like previous administration and new administration, SLDC and the city itself, and they've been very, very supportive. I don't know why everybody's leaving the city. It's great. I love it down there. Like all the entertainment access is right there, to be honest with you. And I live in the Central West End. Absolutely love the neighborhood. I love Forest Park. Go for a walk, go to the zoo just for free. Going on a run, I'm just going to run through the zoo. Like, how many people can say that? In what city? So no, I just love the city, to be honest with you, and I'm planning on staying there probably for a long, long time at this point. To be honest with you, I like the idea of the county, but I'm not just personally. I'm not a huge fan of suburbia. So
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
And
fair
those,
enough.
the incentives and whatnot. And also Senator Carlos Mays, her district kind of overlaps county, city too, and I wanted to make sure that we're supporting the city because you're seeing the exodus. I like to go against the grain. I think most entrepreneurs like to go against the grain in a sense, and it just made sense in our mission with North St. Louis, and it was important for us to be in that neighborhood. It really was. Yeah.
So the project you're currently working on in North St. Louis, would it be relatively fair to say that within a year someone can drive through there and see these homes up?
Yeah, so basically our contract with the city, so we're using actually federal ARPA funds, right? That's been allocated through the CDA down to the SLDC. So yes, these houses need to be done by December 31st of this year. So yes, I would say I'm hoping we'll have our first maybe we're going to do like a 2-phase approach, first 5 done, and then another 5 after that. So, how quick we can get these things to weather-tight lockdown, you should see by end of summer some serious progress. Yeah.
I don't think we touched on it. What was your educational background?
Quite frankly, I went to university and I dropped out. I only have a high school education.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
university was a giveaway that you're Canadian.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. College. Sorry. Yeah.
But so you don't have like an engineering background or
Nope.
something like that.
No.
How did you go about developing some of these processes? And then I'm assuming you guys might have patents and things like
Yes, we
that.
do, yeah.
Like, how did that look for you without the maybe more technical background?
Yeah, I would just say, as the founder, it doesn't matter your education. If you have a passion and believe in something, actually build out a plan. Build out your business plan, build out your projections, your performas, all that, and do the legwork. Like, take the risk, go talk to the people, like get traction underneath you. You can go talk to professionals. Like, hey, this is my idea. Maybe you put on a vesting equity schedule with them, or give them. Or even Nicole, she worked for me part-time pro bono for 2 years, believing in me, believing in my idea. And she's way smarter than me. She has a law degree. She set up manufacturing plants for Toyota as well too. And she just believed in me when I was able to get the funds to pay her, and she joined my team. Right. So it just, I don't know. I can't explain what it is. I don't know. Either you have the passion, people feel the passion, they feel the excitement, and they want to join. Right. That's it. And then same with engineering, same thing. Did the same thing with them as well too. And then on our team. So that's it.
How many patents do you guys have?
Currently, it's like one overall patent right now. It's called forming a wall. So it's gone through, it's issued. I had a holding company in Canada. We're actually transferring it to our US entity right now. So, yeah.
So if somebody wanted to come in and let's say if 5 years from now, you guys are blowing up. If someone wanted to come in and start doing exactly what you're doing, they can't come in and do exactly what you're doing, correct?
No, not at all. We kind of have our secret sauce.
So you have a moat.
Yes, we have a layer of protection with patents
Yeah.
and how we make connections on site and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I know you didn't come to St. Louis like necessarily strategically, but does the strategic location of St. Louis being in the middle of the country, all the infrastructure we have, does that play into future plans?
Big time. That's why I was looking at me being an entrepreneur, and I looked at the West Coast first because it has the biggest housing crisis going on. So let's take on the biggest problem first on, and then obviously looked at Vegas because of tax incentives still to be able to support the West Coast, LA or whatever that looks like. But then I realized it wasn't really panning out there, and then I looked at Memphis on the Mississippi, middle of America, and that's a
Hmm.
huge thing. And then finding St. Louis, the kind of I feel like I kind of kick myself in the butt for overlooking St. Louis from the beginning, to be honest with you, just because the infrastructure here is incredible. I mean, I know the history is like the fourth largest city in America at one point, but the highway infrastructure, the rail infrastructure, and then even barges. Like if we get a project down in Houston or down in New Orleans, we can put our project on barges and ship it down there. So huge strategic advantage of being in St. Louis. I love this city, to be honest with you. I really, really do.
Yeah, it's a great place. I feel the same. You mentioned California. There were some companies out of California. I won't name them. I don't even remember their names, to be honest. That I think tried to do something somewhat similar
Yeah.
and ended up failing.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight into maybe why those didn't work out, or the mistakes they made?
Yeah, I'd say they go and take massive leverage loans and they're building a product very, very specific to a very specific market. I know one was a panelized company with all this crazy technology in it. It was so expensive. Like, who's your target market there? And like a lot of these offsite companies, and I learned from the industry too, is like, you're going to get into a 150,000 square foot facility to start. You're going to buy all this automated robotic equipment, try to eliminate as much labor as possible so you don't have a stopgap. If one of your machines go down, your line's done until that part comes. That doesn't make sense. And so they'll do like, 300 million and you have to service that loan or debt. And if you run out of projects, you're going belly up. So for us, we're debt free, right? We're debt free. We're able to get grants, appropriations, very appreciative of the state support, city support. But, at the same time is start small, increment, and, walk before you run, right? And a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, yeah, they have the big, big vision and they want to get there right away. I think you just shoot yourself in the foot if you do that, to be honest with you. Yeah.
When you're like speaking to investors or other parties that want to learn about your company, do you touch on the data behind some of the issues you're trying to solve? And if so, can you share some of that data? So like cost of housing, labor shortages,
Yeah.
just the issues we face as a country in terms of being able to provide the type of housing we need to be able to
For
provide.
sure. Yeah. The first thing I usually pitch with is our why statement, why we're doing this, why the company exists. And if it's the right investor, that'll hit a chord with them and, have your further thing. But yeah, there's like really kind of like multiple issues in the current construction industry. It's like, one, we'll start with skilled trades. The average plumber right now is 55 years of age in America. Electricians 45. The younger generation, Gen Z, or now even Gen A, they're not wanting to get into blue collar work and whatnot. They see the big college diplomas, the big schools, or they like TikTok and they want to be an influencer, a content creator, right? And I feel they're just not getting into it. So there's that issue. Then you have, like I said, um, change orders. The quality of trades is a big thing too. So, you have one guy that's brand new in the union, one guy that's 30 years in, and one's going to do better work than the other. It's not standardized in any way. I would also say the cost is becoming more and more prohibitive with the multitude of all the trades and everything you need to do as well too. I would say, what else would there be? There's a lot more. Yeah, I would say the material cost spiking and whatnot. We kind of avert that because we quote based on the cost, and then once they make the down payment, sign the contract, we're ordering all the material at once and putting it in our facility, right? So that cost doesn't change. There's no shortchanging developers or developers shortchanging GCs or back and forth, right? So those are just kind of the few things, and then the need for housing. I think it's just everywhere. You've seen how, especially since the pandemic, how the cost of building, also the cost of purchasing homes have gone up and up and up. So we need a solution to kind of mitigate that, right? So yeah, that's it.
I would say like from what I've seen, and I've only done a little bit of development, we're mainly acquiring
Yeah,
and improving. From what I've seen, there are just so many inefficiencies. It's hard to know exactly where to start if you're trying to make it more efficient. In your opinion, like with traditional construction, so not what you guys are doing, with kind of your on-site construction model that most development is using,
yeah.
what is the least efficient part? If you had to pinpoint one, is it like the supply chain? Is it the scheduling of subcontractors? What would you say is the least
Great
efficient?
question. From my experience, it was definitely the trades, reliable trades. To be honest with you, that was more my biggest pain point from a macro point of view. Trying to think here. Yeah, I would say it's trade and then delivery schedules. Yeah, the general contractor's job's hard, very very hard. The developer, yeah, they got to get the funds together, they got to land acquisition, and all that entitlements and all that. But hardest job on any site's the general contractors, and that's kind of where we would step in to like really streamline that and make his life a little bit easier. So
And like, are you saying the trades because you're managing people and you're trying to have them work efficiently, or is it just the scheduling, or what do you think, in your opinion,
Wouldn't be
is?
scheduling because schedules are pretty straightforward. It's definitely the people element. I'd say the person's skill set to are they getting drunk the night before and actually showing up on time, or
Hmm.
and the quality of their work. I think that's there's no standardized to it. You look at Rankin, they train kids coming out of their facility, but then they're up against the unions and they don't like each other because they want the unions, they want journeymen and whatnot in the unions. But I wish it was a little bit like Canada. I know if you have trade schools in Canada, you go to school there and you can get credits and it still act as tenure in the union with you, right? And vice versa, right? So I wish there would be a little bit more cohesiveness here when it comes to those things. But you're right, there's no kind of standardized way to train. You ask anyone, you can hire two different general contractors with their own different teams. They'll go about it completely different way when it comes to the build, right? And the
Sure.
same build, right? So you know
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense, and I'm a little surprised, but not totally surprised that you didn't mention the supply chain. I guess the supply chain, but like as being the biggest issue, like the supply chain is, I guess, not as much of an issue
For
today as it
us
was.
and for us specifically, it
Okay,
isn't. Yeah,
got it,
exactly. Because
got
we
it.
can order well ahead and have that particular strike price,
Yeah.
right? So we know. So like all the lumber would come in at once for our build, right? And so that way the developer has a peace of mind knowing that you're getting this price and not be like, oh, it went up by 30%. Oh, I'm going to charge you 30 more now.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? As stuff comes in, and that's where a lot of friction happens in the industry. So
In your opinion, is it possible for us to source all the materials at some point at an affordable price point within the U.S., or do you think we'll always be dependent on, like, I don't know, Canada for lumber, for example?
Canada's a lumber powerhouse, so I still think the U.S. still has the resources. They have softwood down south, and they have out west as well too. So I think the U.S. can depend on itself, but I also believe in trade. I think trade makes healthy relationships and whatnot. And seeing the stuff a little bit, the current administration, what's going on with Canada and the United States, I'm not a huge fan of. But I think, yeah, in the building industry, U.S. can rely on itself, but it's finite. It's not infinite for sure. And that's why you need external trade partners, I believe. So when
Sure.
it comes to that, and yeah, like the demand of lumber and scared the hell out of me during the pandemic when I was trying to get this company off the ground, like tripled in price, and I was just like, oh, there goes kind of our affordability out the window. But now it's kind of settled down again. But who knows what tariffs are going to pop up next? So yeah,
Sure, sure.
yeah, yeah.
So when you mention attainable housing versus affordable housing, are we talking like 30% of someone's income, 40% of
Yeah, the
someone's
AMI.
income? Yeah, what are you looking at when it comes to defining attainable, and then the price point you're trying to achieve where someone can afford a monthly payment?
Yeah, for sure. So like like I said, our big focus is the superstructure above the foundation. So our goal to have our panels delivered, depending on finishes and windows and all that, it would be 120 to 150 per square foot on the panel side and on the build, and then obviously there's additional on that. Your land work, your site works, your foundations and finishes and whatnot. But yeah, I hate the word affordable. Reason being is that Section 8 condensation, like cheap, crappy housing. With ours, we say attainable because yeah, we wanted to be standard should be 30% of your salary, right? And we're trying to hit that marker. And depending if it's with a nonprofit or the city, it's maybe 50 AMI, 80% AMI. So you got to be a little bit more leaner in that point, and we'll take less margin on our end, quite frankly, with our company. So yeah, that's kind of what we're focused on, and we can reach it. And also too, like all our materials, so our tapes, vapor barriers, structural clips, screws are from European. They have a U.S. entity here. It's called Rothelblast, and like that, we're building essentially how we build in Canada, but for here in St. Louis. So better quality build, better quality materials, good for the winter, all seasons, you name it. So that's part of our mission. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Interesting. That's something that I think a lot of folks don't take into consideration when they're comparing housing across a country or across a continent, the different building standards. So if you were to go expand to other states in the future, you would have the same building standard regardless of where you go?
Yes. Yeah, 100%. That gets it. So we'll meet the code if it's the county code or whatever it is that we'll go to that. But we go a little bit above and beyond, right? The last thing you need is 10 years from now, your cheap run of the mill vapor barrier is letting, moisture in, you're getting mold in the insulation. So we use Rockwell with mineral wool insulation, not your cheap fiberglass. We have the Rothoblast tapes that actually are breathable, and same with the vapor barrier. Even if you puncture it, it seals itself. So that longevity of a build means everything, especially if you're doing attainable housing for marginalized communities like North St. Louis. You want to make sure that they have cheaper heating bills, cheaper, cooling bills, electrical bills, and then they're not getting mold or anything caught up in the interior of the walls and stuff too, right? So
Yeah, that I mean, that sounds incredible, and I hate to ask you on the spot, but I'd love a tour at some
yes,
point.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Love to have you in April when we have
Yeah.
when we get going, and I'll give Steven and Nicole heads up, and yeah, I would love to have you by for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah,
that'd be great.
yeah.
I've looked at some modular stuff myself, not in great detail, but is there anything you would give as advice to, let's say, developers or folks who are thinking of working with you in the future? Like, what are some of the common pitfalls, maybe common mistakes that people make when they're thinking through these types of solutions?
Yeah, it's just a different way of doing it. And I always tell them that, we're using traditional construction materials. We're using, stick built lumber. We can build, we don't have to use the materials I was talking about. We can go based on your full construction set of drawings, right? One thing to keep in mind, I'd say with volumetric, even panelized, there are limitations. You could do a curvature in the building with panels, but it's going to cost you a lot more. So definitely kind of keep it, 90-degree angles. There can be some angles and stuff like that, but generally we do flat or slightly graded roofs as well too. We don't like doing pitched roofs with gables and all that, but I'd say just really just, get your entitlements done, get your designs, work with us on your designs even. We'll give you input, what will maximize your savings to what will cost you more. And then materials are really just kind of up to you. One thing is, I think one of the challenges with North St. Louis is really kind of changing their mind away from brick. And I don't know if you looked at, my team and I, we did almost 6 weeks of helping recovery immediately after the tornado, going into these homes, boarding, tarping and whatnot. And, noticed that all the buildings that collapsed in North St. Louis were brick buildings. And the reason why is because brick is a lot to maintain, right? And if you look at the tornado went over all the nice homes on Lindell across from Forest Park, not one of them collapsed, right? Because there's funds there to keep them maintained. So these families that are lower AMI that we're hopefully bringing equity back to, if they want to go full brick building, one, the brick, the labor and everything's going to skyrocket the build price. And then two, over time, them maintaining that brick over time. I don't see it being a really great solution for the future of North St. Louis, to be honest with you. But you can see in like Forest Park Southeast, we're basically, what is it, between Manchester, Down Tower Grove to Van Vetter, that neighborhood there's a lot of infill modular looking homes with old homes, and the neighborhood looks incredible. So there's a nice balance you can create between the two things, to be my opinion. So yeah.
Let's provide more context on North St. Louis as it is today. So we're talking about a somewhat desolate area that has challenges, and there are beautiful historic brick homes that haven't been maintained for a variety of reasons. But essentially, where we are today is it doesn't make sense to build new homes unless you have a creative solution, and it also doesn't make sense to buy and renovate existing homes due to the costs of tuck pointing, so on and so forth.
Yes.
In an environment like that, you're trying to come in with this pilot project and then ideally some future projects to provide attainable housing that's high quality. And if someone tries to push back and tells you, hey, what you're building doesn't match the character of the neighborhood, so on and so forth, really the only counter argument that matters, in my opinion, is the fact that nothing else makes sense. Is that fair to say?
I would say so. I know some people are adverse to change, right? And that's fine. I get it. But the thing is, do you want to change your neighborhood or just keep everything the same, right? And where it's sitting right now, in my opinion, like I've talked to a lot of great leaders there. Marvin Steele, he's the founder CEO of the Heartland Black Chamber of Commerce. A lot of other great, and he's Pastor Andre down Jeff Vanderloo area. Like, talk to a lot of them, and they want the change. They're leading the change, and at the end of the day, like, I would like just give them a cost comparison, say like, hey, this is what we can do, make it attainable, affordable for this neighborhood, so it can be accessible for residents to stay in that community. Or here it is, all historical brick built. and you'll see the cost difference is as astronomical, right? So I think it's just education, changing minds, and we have community meetings coming up for our project and town halls and all that kind of throughout the process. One, not just for us to kind of steamroll and do what we're going to say we're going to do, but let them have their input. Maybe they want some input on design, what they see the future of their neighborhood, so we can adjust and align with what they need to. It's super important. Yeah.
How do you see the future of North St. Louis 5, 10, 15
Ooh,
years from now?
great question. I'm so focused on the next day, the next day, the next day. For us, I see us kind of doing kind of block by block community development, mixed use kind of in there, and hopefully revitalize it, bring economic, so there's not a food desert there anymore. So like, Schnucks or Diebergs, I probably screwed that name up, I don't know, but, we'll, want to move back in there and, just, yeah, because right now you go kind of deep into North St. Louis. The closest Schnucks is literally Lindell. And you're talking about 3-4 miles away. Like, how are people getting groceries? So for me, the vision is bringing equity back to that neighborhood, not gentrifying it, but bringing equity back into that neighborhood, allowing generational people that are still in homes there stay, and then having new people move in. And I would love to see it more of multicultural down the road instead of this Delmar divide that everybody talks about, that redlining. I'd love to see. Yeah, maybe I'm not too much of a dreamer idealist, but at the end of the day, I would love to see a multicultural neighborhood. I really would.
And do you think there's a future in St. Louis where we have more Canadians immigrating to St. Louis?
I think so. Yeah, I'm a pretty big proponent. I remember last year, November, I hosted the Consul General of Canada, and had her here. And I remember the last question she asked me is like, what's the difference between business in the United States and Canada? And I simply said, when I started my company in Canada, when I went out to pitch, all I got was, all people saw were the red tape. All the people saw were the challenges, the hurdles, and whatnot. And then I come down here and I pitch my company to various investors, but they see the vision, they see the end result and whatnot. And I feel Canadian entrepreneurs and Canadians in general are getting frustrated with Canada, cost of living, groceries, and the list goes on. We'll be here for 2 hours if I went through it all. Yeah, they're looking in the United States, stronger dollar, better economy, more attainable housing. You can buy a beautiful home, say in Shaw or whatever, $300,000-$400,000 here in St. Louis, and go to any city in Canada. That's $3 to $4 million for a single family detached home, right? So Toronto, Vancouver, wherever you're going to be, right?
Yep.
Montreal, even. So yeah, there's definitely a push. I know there's kind of an anti-US stuff going on in Canada right now with the outside, but I think kind of before that, there's a big push of a lot of Canadians. I have even had friends ask me if they can work for me, they could sponsor them to come down to St. Louis. And St. Louis specifically, I'm a big proponent. I'm a huge advocate and promoter, I guess you could say. Love how there's no traffic, 15 minutes anywhere. Forest Park, the Blues, the Cardinals, even the Battlehawks, and food scene is incredible here. It's like some of the best. I had some friends from London, England come down, and I took them to Vistia, and their minds exploded on the flavor of what's going on in the city, and also the price point too. So yeah, I love this town. I will.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I agree with absolutely everything you said. I don't want to beat up on Canada too much, but I
don't either.
I do feel like, and trust me, I beat up on it enough.
The Olympics are going on now too. We got to be careful. Yeah.
But I do feel like this is such a great region, and a lot of folks who are maybe feeling stuck in Canada just due to what you mentioned and what a lot of people mention would thrive in this type of environment where there is opportunity.
Yes.
There's people wanting to help you. I'm sure when you talk about your mission, everyone is in full support of you because everyone really truly wants the region to be better and do better.
Yeah, I agree.
Just going back to your industry, because it's an industry that I think most people overlook for a variety of reasons. But I think most people, even real estate folks, don't think of a modular solution, don't think of prefab housing or construction. They're always thinking of the on-site type of development. Do you think, whether it's your company or your company and other companies, or just a total shift in the industry, do you think 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, we can look the way the car industry looks in the housing world? Because you mentioned Henry Ford. Like, can we really get there with housing?
It'd be tough, to be honest with you, but you keep in mind, like, they get car parts manufactured offsite and then delivered to their factory, and they live in the car industry, right? So I part of my pitch, then it's true, is like, you look at any industry around the housing industry, you look at cars, planes, computers, even calculators have had more innovation than the building industry, and we spend the most amount of time in our lives in buildings, and that's at home or at work, right? So why aren't we innovating this industry? I think that's the big question, and that's what really excited me to like kind of push this along. But I was reading it, I think it's like a 4.6 CAGR right now that the modular industry is kind of taking over the build, like say the traditional building industry, and I don't know, there's mass timber, so we can literally build 30-story towers made out of wood, and that's modular, right? These are literally glue lam, like multiple boards stuck together to create a structural, column beam or whatever it is. And there's one announced in Midtown, right by the stadium, St. Louis City Stadium, and hopefully that project goes forward because that's going to be a great example. There's already one in Milwaukee. They're doing them in California as well too. So I honestly think from that standpoint, even with my company, we would love to do those envelopes with that, or maybe eventually get into mass timber, right? Those types of structures. So I think it's coming, and if developers that are sitting on this thing want to keep doing the same thing, and don't get me wrong, the developers club is an old boys club. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows everybody. They have their model. They have their systems. It's printing the money. I get it. But this industry is coming. And the question is, do you want to make more money, be part of change and be part of innovation, or you just want to sit back and potentially get passed by, right? That's really what it comes down to it.
Why do you think like there's such a big disconnect between some of the younger or more creative founders who want to try to disrupt construction and some of the more established players? Like, I feel like you have a great background because you have that real world experience. Yeah. Do you think a lot of disruptors in the space just don't know what the reality looks like?
I think so. I think a lot of the software, project management guys, SaaS tools and whatnot, I feel like, I don't know, they need to get down on the ground and build maybe even a shed in their backyard from the ground up, or get involved with partner with the general contractor and really, really see what it needs. And, they'll start the platform. Don't be wrong. An MVP is like the most important thing as a startup and whatnot. And then you do customer discovery and get feedback and you build your model out from that. But I think actually doing it first gives you, because I always say, I remember when I talked to entrepreneurs, done presentations in front of them, and they're sitting there and they want I don't have an idea. I don't have an idea. Like, well, what's one of your passions? And then they'll say, well, I love doing this. Well, how long have you spent in it? And they're like, okay, this amount of time, or I haven't really gone into it. So we'll dive into it. I guarantee you on your journey through that passion, wherever that project is, you're going to see pain points, right? And if you can identify those pain points, come up with a solution around them and create a revenue model, you got a business. Simple as that. So that's my kind of, I guess you could say, 2 cents on that.
That's a great point. That's a really great point. Aside from what you just said, and then also the perseverance, is there any other advice or wisdom that you would give to young entrepreneurs or just folks who are maybe looking to make a shift and solve some problems?
Yeah. My driver for my perseverance is proving people wrong. And it's not to out of spite. It's not out of look what I did. It's one, just true belief in myself, right? And really pushing forward. And there's been many times I should have, quit, and my ex-wife left me and whatnot. But now that, you kind of get to a point where you're on a roll and all these things are coming out. And I actually recently just met the love of my life, and, everything's been absolutely amazing. But yeah, perseverance is the world will text you. I don't care about your religious background, your God, universe, or whatever it is. It will test you. It'll give you what you're asking for, and will put you through a period of time in your life or through a road to see if you can get through it. And I say, if you really want something and it is your dream, your goal, whatever you wanted in life, I promise once you get through that, you have character built, you'll have made new friends, whatever it is, and you'll create a whole new kind of version of yourself coming out of that trying time. And I went through hundreds of them, but, but here I am, and like I said, right now, even so, the work's not done, right? I did through the first phase of an entrepreneur, the pitch, the raising the money and whatnot. Now is the hardest start is you have to deliver. You have to build a great team. You have to build a great product. You have to deliver. You have to get cash flow. You need revenue, right? So we're kind of a quarter through that stage right now. So yeah, the work's never done. And I love waking up to a challenge every morning and just going at it. So yeah.
You mentioned before we started recording some international stuff. Are you able to speak on any of that, or
yeah? If not right now. It's too early. Yeah, I don't want to say too much right now.
All good. All good.
Yeah, and next time when I'm on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if I'm invited back, that is. Yeah.
Oh, of course. Anytime.
Yeah.
So we actually, you mentioned the coffee meetings that we have. There was a speaker recently, Ness Sandoval. He's a professor at SLU. So he was talking about some of the demographic challenges that the region's facing, the country's facing when it comes to birth rates versus deaths and things like that. Are you focused on any particular zip codes or neighborhoods due to demographics when it comes to the existing populace and what the future might look like? Or are you just solely looking to solve uh, problems neighborhood by neighborhood at this point?
I would say just neighborhood by neighborhood at this point. I think that's the great question. I'm actually kind of interested in going to go look into this now after this, to be honest with you, just to see kind of what the needs are. But really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where you are in America or North America, Canada, or whatever. There's need everywhere for attainable housing, and I think it's directly correlated with those declines of the cost of living, like even cost of housing, you name it. So if you can get better quality homes, or maybe incentives from the federal government, state, local, to make home buying more attainable, where it's not eating up 75% of your paycheck, down to that 30 baseline where it should be. I think people will start having kids again. They'll actually start, maybe, right now there's a bunch of couples that are married that don't want to have kids because they want to give them a good life and they're scared. And I've been one of them. I'm 43 now, right? And I didn't want to have kids until I was set and wherever I was. And maybe they'll come in the future. I don't know. But that was my mindset too, to be honest with you. So I think if we can really kind of lower the cost of this, and interest rates are a piece too, you're balancing inflation with, rates to buy homes and whatnot. And you have a lot of Americans right now locked into incredible rates over the pandemic, different than mortgages in Canada, of course, but they're probably going to be forever nesters there, to be honest with you. But yeah, even just the new housing and whatnot, if we can get it attainable, affordable, I think the population rate will hopefully start and, growing again. Yeah, I've seen some articles. It's scary, to be honest with you, the drop off. It really is.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So we're in the apartment rental business.
Yeah.
A lot of our residents, I think, are renters by choice. However, I do think in other cities, or even in places like Canada, for example, a lot of people are not renting by choice. It's due to the affordability factor. So, do you think you guys will be able to help solve that home ownership crisis more so? Or do you think a solution like yours in the neighborhoods you're going in 5 years from now, let's say, are you helping to solve for the rental piece? Are rents going to be more affordable? Is the American dream going to be attainable? What would you say you're a little more focused on?
I would say for sale housing, to be honest with you, but it's a hybrid approach, right? It's really up to the developer what they're going to do with the property when we're done with it. But
sure.
Add to that, we are starting our own fund, essentially. So we'll be raising capital into that to do new development, for market development, and then also part of that's land acquisition, and then also rentals as well too. So we basically want to streamline that process with our product at a discount, right? So we can get into that rate and then do for sale and then rentals as well too. So yeah.
Have you noticed a similar thing though? I say in Canada, I feel like there's more folks who are just totally priced out, but they want to own homes. Do you feel like in the US it's kind of a mixed bag, where it's like some people want to rent because of the lifestyle, or do you think it's maybe I'm blind to it and it's more of the being priced out?
I think but the thing is, priced out on the coast cities for sure.
Sure.
Right, middle of America, but middle of America kind of gets gets looked down upon by the coast cities. But I think you can see prices can level out and stay the same in the St. Louis region. You're gonna have a lot of people, expats or transplants moving into St. Louis. You see it all the time already. St. Louis is a very multicultural city. Even like Steven, my head of development, CSO, he's from Chicago originally. He lived in New York, Chicago, and he's here with his family here because they could buy a nice home in Clayton and not carry a mortgage and all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a hybrid, to be honest with the two. I think it really depends on the person's individual experience, but overall in Canada, everybody wants to own real estate because of how great of an investment it's been over the last 20 years. Here in the States, it's kind of been on a steady incline since the pandemic, more so. So it'd be nice if we can just kind of get that happy medium of pricing, rent, and kind of back in the, I guess you could say, the picket white fence American dream days. That'd be great to see again. But will that happen? I don't know. I'm not an economist.
Sure.
So, yeah.
What have we not touched on when it comes to module building systems and just kind of what you have going on at the moment? Did we miss anything?
No, I'd say pretty much covered. We're just, like I said, right now we're really focused on getting our facility up and running. We were at Rankin before all the big facility, building a couple prototypes and whatnot. And right now we're controlling what's in our control, and there's external stuff that we have to get a roll-in bay rolled in. We're waiting for landlord to do that. But No, our mission right now is kind of on track. And it's, to me, I wake up sometimes and I'm like, wow, would I actually pull this off? You question it, and I remember before this journey, like I had imposter syndrome, kind of doing like, well, should I really be in this room, say with Maxine Clark, or should I be in this room with like, big time politicians, federal or state level? And then kind of as you grow throughout this journey and you realize, yeah, you're supposed to be there. And like now I don't get imposter syndrome, which is great. But now it's more like, yeah, I can't believe that all this hard work, all this, the blood, sweat, tears, and like sleepless nights, being broke, sleeping on an air mattress, where I am right now, actually worked out. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
That's incredible. You have a great story. I really love the story. And that imposter syndrome, I really can relate to that. I feel like when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I have the imposter syndrome until I make myself uncomfortable enough times to where I just forget about feeling like an imposter, and then it feels natural.
Yeah, exactly. And Obama had a really good video. Is like, all these people. I'm not going to get a misquoted, but there's a video. Look it online. Search Obama on other people or powerful people. It's like all these people in the room. They have great titles, great wealth, whatever it is, but they're just people. At the end of the day. And I remember like seeing that back in about 4 or 5 years ago. And that really struck with me, fancy titles and they think they're the smartest. No, they're just average Joes, they just happen to be born in that or built that or whatever it is. People are people. And that's a recommendation to new founders, new entrepreneurs is like, just treat them as people. Don't put them on a pedestal. There's that saying that, once you get to know your heroes, you realize they're not really heroes anymore, or they'll disappoint me and disappoint you. And yeah, that's something I learned. And I feel like I've always been just really good with connecting with people in general, but it's definitely a skill set to have. But yeah, I'd say just if you're in the room, you're supposed to be there. Put it that way.
That's a great point. That's a really good point. I'm picking up a lot of different things that I think are really helpful for founders, entrepreneurs. There's the perseverance. There's the drive or the overall just fulfillment from the mission. And then you mentioned networking.
Yeah.
Do you have any, aside from just being a good person, aside from following through, like how are you able to network the way you do and like come in touch with whether it's high level people or just people you need to know to further your business?
Your network is like a ripple effect, right? So once you kind of get in, like I was with Rankin and then met Maxine and Arch Grants and kind of spread out for there. But I feel like one is your passion, right? How you present yourself, your idea, whatnot and whatnot. And then literally St. Louis, like we were talking about this earlier, it's like the most amazing city. Like if you have, doesn't matter what vertical of industry you're in, like if you have a great idea, you're passionate about it, you talk to someone, it's like, oh, I know someone you should talk to. Like, people in St. Louis will offer that, if they get a good vibe from you and good read on you, they'll offer that to you. And like your network just goes crazy. Like, I can't believe the network that I have. And people are like, Mark, how the hell have you done this? I'm just like, I don't know. I'm just showing up and following my passion, leading with my heart and what I'm trying to accomplish. And people have just opened up, and that's it. That's one thing. It doesn't matter if it's St. Louis is a very, very special case, but even other cities and whatnot. I just, lead with your heart and talk to people. And if they want to open up or even in your conversations, like, do you have anyone in your network that I should connect to that can probably help me? And then a key thing too is also even raising money or network, whatever it is, ask for mentorship, ask for help. Never go for like a direct ask. They'll shut down that way. So, do you know anyone that's been in this industry that I need to help with that could help me with this or give me advice on this? And boom. Or even the person you're talking to, same thing. They'll open up to you. Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Yeah.
I have two more questions for you. This next question, you can either agree, disagree, or say you don't want to answer it.
Sure.
In my opinion, St. Louisans are, generally speaking, nicer than Canadians. And I only say that because Canada has this reputation of being super friendly, which it is. But I think people in St. Louis are even friendlier.
I agree. It reminded me a lot of Canada when I first got here, but the kindness I find, I'll tell them Canadians are going to hate me for this one, but I find that Canadians, as soon as they cross the border out of Canada, they become these like worldly, perfect, like nice citizens of the world. But in Canada, we're really not that nice to each other, to be honest with you. Quite frankly, but me being Canadian, coming into St. Louis, like one of my best friends here, he actually owns American Shipping Container Design. He's doing shipping container homes in North St. Louis. Jimmy Quinlivan, and like he was so kind and welcoming to me. Like when I first met him, and we hit it off, and now we're like best friends here, hang out all the time. We bought Blues seasons tickets together and all that. So like, and then even just meeting people People are just kind at the end of the day. I feel like St. Louisans, yeah, they can be closed off, but even if you just make that, oh, hey, how are you today? And they just open right up and they'll tell you their life story or, whatever it is. And yeah, it feels like Canada, but I honestly, from where I grew up in Hamilton, Toronto area, it's way better. Way better. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for giving me that answer, by the way. And I wanted to give you the out because we're not trying to make anyone upset. We both
That's okay.
we both have a lot of friends and family in Canada, but I will say anyone that I bring into town absolutely loves St. Louis, wants to find a way to be here. I said two more questions, but I actually have another one I just thought of. How are you bringing Canadians to St. Louis through your company? Is it like an H-1B visa, or what type of setup is that? And then are you currently being impacted by the current administration at all?
Currently, no, because what I did is I leveraged the Arch Grants win, the 100,000 US for an E2 investor visa. So through that, I was able to get my visa. And then long as we're a operating company, making hires, I think we have to hire 2 people by the end of the year, which we've already done. So long as we're showing that and like we're compliant, taxes are paid, all that stuff, we can sponsor as many Canadians as we want to join under our company. Again, the E2 is not, it's a non-immigrant alien visa. So it's not a pathway to say citizenship, but the goal for mine since I was a little kid, like my first time in the States, and I saw beautiful, I went and saw the Grand Canyon, and I was like, oh, this is such a beautiful country. I've always wanted to have dual, right? So, and I think we talked about this before about the waiver of national interest. So for us, I want to wait more towards the end of this year to go for that application. So yeah, exactly.
And then the folks who are coming in to work for your company, what type of visa are they?
E2.
They're on an
under
E2?
mine. I'm sponsoring them
Oh,
through our
interesting.
E2. So they're under an E2 as well. So the
Interesting.
nice thing with them is like the E2 is like for me is I can only specifically work for my company and any subsidiaries underneath of it. That's it. I can't work for any other thing. So it's very specific to module building systems, and same with my employees as well too. So, but I'm hoping with the waiver of national interest, they'll actually give them an opportunity as well too to go for a green card or convert that into a green card pathway if they want to, right? We paid for their interviews, their, travel down here a week up in a hotel while they found a place and whatnot. So I'm a very employee first founder, put it that way. I believe if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of you and take care of your company. So yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I actually didn't know that was a pathway, so I think it'll be something that maybe we explore as
Easiest
well.
low hanging is the E2. So set up an entity, minimum investment. There is no minimum, but it's the significant investment usually is like up to $75,000 to $100,000, and it's got to show it's a non-marginal business that it is operating and whatnot. And yeah, it's good. So
yeah, I had an E2 as well, but I didn't know that was a pathway for like additional people
workers.
to be. Yeah. I didn't know
okay.
at all.
Gotcha.
So
I didn't realize.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So you went from E2 to
yeah.
waiver.
So I had the E2 for 5 years,
Yep.
and then I renewed it for another 5. And then close to when that was going to expire or come up for renewal, I applied for that national interest waiver. And that process took maybe 2 years or a year and a half.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And then we got our green cards, and it's another maybe 3.5 years until we can apply for citizenship.
Perfect. Sweet. Nice. Sweet. Yeah. So that's kind of my path in my immigration or gym hacking law. They're great. Use them, guys. They're so great. Well, we're going to, as soon as he heard my company, what we're doing, he's like, you should go for an international national interest waiver. I was like, okay, in time. Let me do some projects first, get our facilities. So we actually have something to show the government.
But it's funny though, like the categories, at least at that time, it was like, science, medicine, housing. It was like, it's like perfect for you.
Well, and it's such a need too, right? That's it. So 100%.
Yeah, totally. That and that's a big part of why they offer it. So that's great to hear. The last question I have for you: what is maybe one of the more important teachings that you can remember or recall that you'd like to share with anyone listening or watching?
From an entrepreneurial standpoint, one of the more profound books that really, really hit home for me, a book called Start with Why with Simon Sinek. It's basically the why of your company. Sure, money, no, but what's the mission, the why statement of your company? And that really kind of changed and flipped how I looked at starting businesses or whatever it is. Because put it like, if you have that why statement, it's universal across your company culture, across anything. And it's even in a banner on your wall or whatever it is, back, your screensavers from your company computers, whatever. Everybody knows why they're showing up every day, and for me, again, and then also he talks a lot about company culture and is another great follow-on book to that called Leaders Eat Last, right? And he looked at SEAL teams and whatnot, and do they want the highest performer, or do they want the most trustworthy, and finding that right balance into, and creating trust between my employees and myself, and knowing that at the end of the day, if shit hits the fan, I'm cutting my paycheck. Like, they're going to make sure they're paid first, and they're going to have good benefits. And they're going to be taken care of, because the way that traditional corporate America is treated today with commodities, like humans are commodities, they can cut them salary. First thing to go is human stuff. That's the last thing I want to do in our company. I want to make sure that we're putting them first and taking care of them, because all the companies I've seen that have been incredibly, incredibly successful from the startup, the founders take care of their employees, and it basically creates a system of self-sustainability within the company itself. So I think, yeah, Simon Sinek's one of my great kind of leaders and whatnot. He has a bunch of books: Infinite Game, Leaders Eat Last, Start with Why, Find Your Why. Really good series of books. I recommend any entrepreneur founder read those books, 100%.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Mark. And thanks again for your time. You're
Thank
building
you.
something special, and I'm excited to follow along.
For sure. Hopefully we get to work with you on some projects coming up here when you guys get into new builds and whatnot. So it'd be fun. And thanks for having me. It's been a blast. And hopefully I'll be back again sometime, maybe in a couple of years or so. So
yeah, sounds great.
That's great.